back. Time for another edition of the Carolina Insider. It's the Arena Discussion edition of the show. Jones and Adam here with you, and we've got two great guests joining us today as we take another look at this overriding discussion about the future home of Carolina basketball. And Adam, episode 3, we're deep diving into the student experience today.
An important topic, so we've got people who know this topic with us. We've got
been a while since we've been students, Adam.
A couple years. So we decided to get some people who have a little more expertise than we do. We've got Carolina's, of course, incoming athletic director, Steve Newmark, is here. We've got incoming student body president, Devin Duncan, is here. You will see him at the head of student body starting April 1st.
That's right. We're counting down.
We're getting close to assuming the power all over the place around here. Guys, both of you, I guess, student seating has become an important issue. Why is it one of the key things that you're looking at as you consider the future of Carolina basketball?
Sure, I'll jump in. First of all, thanks for having us. It's a privilege to be here. I always like coming in here in the museum and looking around. You guys don't work
multifunction rooms.
You guys don't work in the real world. You guys understand that. But I think, for those of you who are familiar with kind of where we are in the process of evaluating the arena situation, I think you know that we've been looking at kind of a variety of different topics that impact what's the right decision. And we've really coalesced around 6 strategic objectives that I think most, if not all, of the stakeholders have really embraced. And the first is to make sure we have the premier basketball-first arena in the country, that we preserve the history and tradition of UNC basketball, that we have an elite fan experience, that we have best-in-class training facilities for our student athletes, that we have revenue opportunities to ensure our competitive success, and then the 6th is to improve student seating for maximum in-game impact. And I think that's something near and dear to my heart. I think we're all shaped by kind of our formative years and the experience we had. I was privileged to be able to grow up here, and Carmichael Auditorium was kind of where I kind of shaped what I thought of UNC basketball, and it was the student seating, the student experience in there, the volume that you would hear at every game that really is important to me. And we've talked about how we can ensure that we capture that in any new arena or any renovated arena.
Devin, is this something that is being talked about in the student body? I know we've been talking about it a bunch here recently. Is this something that is being talked about from the student perspective?
Absolutely. There's nothing like being closer to the court and being loud. One of my favorite memories, and I'm an out-of-state student, so I'd never been to a Carolina basketball game until I got to Carolina. And I could think to my first year, one of my favorite experiences, there was snow, there was weather, the university made the call open seating, seeing the people running down super close to the court. I remember remarking, it's almost as loud as a Duke game. I mean, the energy there was unprecedented. I mean, the risers is another really exciting part for students almost every single game. So the student experience is important, but I also think it's more than student experience. The overall fan experience, how can we get more students at each of the games, not just, our top games, and that is the concessions, bathrooms, are you tucked up in the upper level where I'm 6'2", so it's tight up there as well. I mean, those are all things that contribute to students wanting to go to the game, and it's important that those are captured, in my opinion, in whatever option is chosen.
Devin, tall people problems is something I'm really concerned about.
Yeah,
so I want to let you know that we're on the same page. Steve, as you think about either a renovation or a new arena, it's going to involve raising money. One of the ways you raise money is with the very best seats. How do you balance the need to generate revenue with seats with also doing the things that you and Devin are talking about with providing an environment with those seats?
Well, I think it's a great point. It's a give and take, and I think we believe that whether it's renovated or new arena, that a focus is going to need to be on making sure that the students are closer to the court, and we think that's important for the overall atmosphere in the entire arena. And we think as you generate more energy, and students are the catalyst to that, they really are the leading edge of making sure that the volume and the decibel and the energy level in the arena is as high as can be. That attracts other people, and that makes the whole fan experience much better and much enhanced. And hopefully we can say maybe we contributed a little bit to the success or failure on the court, that we can motivate the players as well. But we believe that we can get to a point where we're able to get the students closer to the court than we currently have, and not jeopardize the revenue opportunities that we're going to be able to generate in a new or renovated arena.
Devin, I have something for you, but Steve, let me ask you this first. Devin kind of alluded to overall student attendance at the Smith Center currently? Where are we in that regard? What are the stats? What are the numbers? What have you seen as far as just overall student participation currently and what's happening with Carolina home games?
Sure. I think it's a great question. And anyone who's attended, we do have great student support. And the numbers, we average around 3,000 students in each of our games. Now, for the Duke game, we had 5,400, and Clint Gwaltney and Jacob and the crew in our ticket office do a great job of making sure that they use sophisticated algorithms to ensure that we get as many students in as possible. And so for the Duke game, we're able to flex up. But if you just look at a general game, we're at about 3,000 students that attend. Now, I'm told that has, slightly or has declined over the last 20 years. And that's not an indictment of the students. It's just the way kind of the world has evolved, that if you take a snapshot in 2005, we had higher student attendance. And so you'll talk to people and they have all different opinions on why that's the case. It's, hey, back then the games weren't all on television. They didn't have 80-inch TVs in their room. And then you also have folks that talk about, well, the students aren't going to show up if they don't have good seats. They can't sit with their friends. They don't have good access. It's not an experience that they want before, during, and after the game. And so, although we're pretty blessed with the students that we have show up, I don't think anybody would deny that the environment that we had here for the Kansas game or the Duke game this year was just off the charts. But what we want to do is facilitate an experience for the students that we can get that atmosphere and energy as much as possible.
So, Devin, from a student perspective, what is good about going to a game right now in the Smith Center, and what is not good about going to the game in the Smith Center right now from a student angle?
Well, I think one of the good things is obviously the convenience, being able to walk, from your class, from your dorm. I lived in Hinton James, just right down the road. Walking to the Dean Dome, it's awesome right now. And then you get in there and, our team, Caleb Wilson, Seth Trimble. I mean, speaking at this current season, those are incredible things. So being able to continue to recruit great players is, I think, a priority for everyone, because we want to be able to come back and see a winning program, a winning team. That's the biggest thing. I think those allude to the most important right now. The convenience, having a winning team is important. What's not going so well is, not being able to sit with your friends. Sometimes you're split between lower and upper level. If you're upper level and even lower level, it's a little tight up there. Maybe you want to go get something, a snack or something like that. The concessions have a long line. The bathrooms aren't necessarily the prettiest. So those are all things to think about. I think also in terms of maybe the alluding to student attendance declining, of course, 3,000 is still a really good number. But I would say also, think about right now the Dean Dome is kind of in the corner, right? There's not a lot to do around the Dean Dome. I think about if you're wanting to go get food or something with a friend, you start at Franklin Street potentially, and then, have to walk all the way down. Is it seeing things closer, so that it is not just, something here, something there. It's all in one place. Of course, thinking and envisioning what comes next, being closer, that means louder. That atmosphere makes you want to stand up and cheer more. And then, you see that on Snapchat, you see that on Instagram, and you're like, I got to get there. I got to be involved in that. And so that's important as well, I think.
I'm not sure Adam or Jones sees it on Snapchat.
Yeah, that was I was about to say, there's a lot of that just happened right there.
They understand what you're talking about.
Yeah. I've heard of that before. Devin, as part of your job, it's inherent in your job that you have to work with the administration. That's something that enables you to be successful in what you do. And you've done that since you got here, I think.
Yes.
How do you also stay in touch with the student side to make sure that you are getting the feel of what's going on there and maybe not having as much of the administration side?
Well, for this topic, I don't think you need to stay in touch. They'll come to you. As I was campaigning, that was one of the leading questions. No matter where I was at, what debate, what are views, and if you know Carolina, we got a lot going on always, both on the academic side and on the athletic side. So certainly, I've heard lots of different opinions from everyone. In both sides. I think ultimately my responsibility as student body president is to students, and so I work in good faith with administration, but I also take very seriously the responsibility of representing students. And I would give a shout out because I think now that it's been sort of slowed down, there's really have been an intentional effort, conversations that predate me. I'm on the executive council to student government now, and I know Adolfo, our current student body president, has been involved in creating an advisory council that's looking at, how do we protect and maintain and improve upon the student experience. And then there's also been just other opportunities for students to share feedback. I know there's a crew that met with the chancellor and gave feedback on potentially why it needs to stay on South Campus. I mean, from top to the bottom, I think there's been lots of engagement with students, and I look forward to, as assuming the role, what that looks like, no matter the option that's picked. I mean, I think you alluded to it, Steve. There's a priority for the student experience, no matter what option is chosen. And I sit here right now, I don't know the option. I wasn't prepped for this. I don't know anything, but I sit here and knowing that in anything that we pick, we've got a priority, and we should absolutely get students closer and make sure that the students that come after us still have an enjoyable, game day experience, because that's really crucial to students' experience at Carolina as an institution as a whole.
Go ahead.
Steve, for a long time, the thing with the Smith Center has been, it would be great to have students closer to the court. It's just not doable. And that's kind of been the end of the discussion for a decade plus. Is it doable?
I think that what we have seen so far is, and I think you explored previously in one of these, there are 7 options that are on the table. And I think there's no doubt that if you look at a new arena, you have a clean slate, you're painting on a blank sheet of paper, and you really can construct the ideal student seating model. And you can get them close, and that is really actually, if you look at, and we may show some charts there, the experts who came in to help us with the revenue generation took a model that had all 3,000 seats in the lower bowl for the students. There are ways, I think, that you can pull different levers in the Smith Center on a renovation to get the students lower. It's not the same thing because there are existing restrictions around permanent seat rights holders, endowment seat rights holders, so it makes it more difficult to get that optimal seating. It's something we're continuing to explore. I know there are different suggestions that have been made, but I think the way that I would look at it is whatever path we go, we are going to work hard to improve student seating. It's much easier to get the ideal situation in a new arena, but we're not going to relent in any scenario.
And Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys have done a fair amount of research on kind of peer institutions, right, and peer basketball programs and how they handle that student seating. Is that right?
That's correct. We had we've been shown the seating charts for who we consider our peers, and I think I'd give the caveat that in everything we're doing, we are looking at how other people operate, but that's not dictating. We still view that we're Carolina. We view that we're unique and that we're going to do it what's the right way for us. But when you look at it, there are a number of schools out there that have been able to accomplish many more student seats in the lower bowl, whether it's on each end line or whether it's along the baseline. So that's what we're trying to achieve, something that probably more closely approximates some of what we had in Carmichael.
Devin mentioned the student council, and we've heard a lot about the player council as well. Can either Steve or Devin or whoever, what happens in one of these meetings? Like, if you guys are sitting down and talking when these groups come together, what actually happens in these meetings?
I think there's education. The previous episodes, there's going to be a lot about numbers and legacy seats and things like that. I think a lot of students don't know about that information, and a lot of them are interested. And, I just a couple hours ago got a message from the president of our Carolina consulting. I mean, there's so many groups that are interested in really looking at what are all the factors. I think there are people who are really passionate about athletics, and so they also know that we're in a rapidly changing era with NIL. I mean, I got that question. So there's a lot of education, but then there's also the solicitation of student feedback. What makes you want to come to the game? Is it sponsorships like free shirts and hats and things like that? I remember getting a bucket hat, and people were asking, where do you get the bucket hat from? You got to come to the game. So all of that's going going on. And then I think there's also opportunities for follow-up, more in-depth conversations that are having, like I said, their group met with the chancellor, things like that. There is a really willingness to understand at the end of the day, what does this new era for Carolina basketball need to look like to get more fans in the Dean Dome, in the center, and louder, so that improves upon the court experience for the players.
Devin and Coach Williams, big bucket hat guys.
Yeah, both had the bucket hat on. That's right.
Devin, as you said, a lot of students don't know as much about the old people issues, and I think it's fair to say that we old people don't know as much about the student issues. You've talked about not being able to sit with your friends, the concourse, concessions. Like, some of those are tangible arena things that I understand, like the concourse. I've been there. I know what you're talking about. Going to the games with your friends, how does it work going to the games as a student right now? And is that a process issue or an arena issue?
Well, you obviously do the lottery, and the lottery, Carolina Fever supports you going to all the different, games. And I think everyone realizes we have some really remarkable programs at Carolina, which contributes to, I think, something really unique that a lot of maybe our peers don't really have, is we have this powerhouse academics and we have powerhouse athletics. But you get in and there's phases. So you have to get the risers wristband and run to the risers. I think always there is, people wanting to get to the risers that, it's limited space, especially now when we're seeing the type of season that we're having. People want to be closer. And then, you start and you fill up the lower. And then in some cases, if you have a group of 5, and you're right at the point, you might be split up. Or if you're not split up, then a group in the lower would have to sacrifice to go to the upper. And then, you're sort of led in based on your phase. And I think now more than ever, people want to be with their friends. There's nothing like being able to experience a game with your friends. And so, right now with the way that seating is divided, it's a lot easier to be split up, to not have the opportunity to sit with your friends, or to just maybe not have the best view. It's kind of hard to be excited about the game. You're still excited, but it's hard to be very excited when you're tucked up in the upper level corner. It's not the same as being closer. And I think back to that call being made to have open seating, and just people running. You would think it was a Black Friday sale, the people who were running down the stairs to try to get closer, and how loud it was. That should be the standard no matter the option that's picked. It was really amazing.
Any final thoughts, Devin? Let me start with you. Just as we move forward, any final thoughts from you, or any final points you want to make sure that people understand?
Yeah, I think I've got 2. One, to the students. I want them to know, as the incoming student body president, I'm certainly having conversations and engage. And I think there has been a genuine willingness, from every group, the athletics department, the chancellor's office, everybody, to listen. And so, above all, we want to pick an option where the students are most satisfied. I think in the first episode, the chancellor said, this is our team. It is our team. And so be engaged, reach out to student government, myself. I'm happy to get connected, share information. And I think there's going to be opportunities over the next couple of weeks through this podcast, but through other ways to keep people informed about what is facing, Carolina athletics right now, and how you make the right decision, no matter if it's easy or hard. And to the fans, I think I would say the level of engagement is a really good thing. We could be at a place where no one cares about the basketball team. And so in my opinion, I said that my vision is unapologetically for students. I think that means that we all, donors, alumni, legacy seat holders, whatever it might be, I think we've got a responsibility to work with one another no matter the option that's picked. And I think that there can be, and there is, broad consensus that students closer to the court means that there's a better game day experience for everyone. And so no matter the options picked, there's going to be people upset on both sides. I think we all should commit to some unity in saying, how can we protect that and what comes next? Because that is a better Carolina basketball program. And I know that's my priority, and it's students' priority as well.
Steve, how about you?
Well, a lot of words of wisdom from Devin there. I appreciate you sharing. I'm not sure any of the older folks could have captured it quite the way you did. But from my perspective, our mission remains to ensure that Carolina has the best basketball program in the country. And the building serves that mission, but it's not the mission itself. And so what we need to do is we need to make sure that we have elite players, elite coaches, elite resources, elite facilities, which includes the building, and then also an elite student participation, elite student energy, because that will all drive us to get to the right result.
Devin said it well earlier. Want to come see a winning team. That is always priority number one, right, for the Tar Heels as we move forward. Steve, great to see you. Thanks for being here. Devin, nice to meet you. Appreciate you giving us some time. And that's it for us. Another edition as we focus in on the students. They made us feel young today. That's good. That's hard to do. And appreciate y'all joining us here on the latest edition of the Carolina Insider Arena Discussion.